Now, back to Coastal Living on KZTV.
All right, so as a new mom and someone who really struggled with breastfeeding, once I found out it was Breastfeeding Month, I really wanted to make it a point to address this on the show because I know I'm not alone. There's a whole community out there of women who need support and women like Miss Aubriana Lutz here who can provide support for you to be more empowered, whether you are or are not able to breastfeed. But there are some tips and tricks that we're going to talk about with you today. So first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
I discovered you on Instagram, and you were a big lifesaver for me when I was at home really struggling with breastfeeding. Now your title is IBCLC. What does that stand for?
So that actually stands for International Board Certified Lactation Consultant.
Okay.
Alphabet soup, right? But really what it means is we have experience in moms and babies and helping with breastfeeding. We've done coursework and we've taken an international test. So lots of experience, and we've certified internationally to help moms and babies.
Cool. And so some moms might be kind of like, oh no, these are mine and my babies, and I don't know how to ask for help, or maybe we're stubborn and we're so set on getting, I know I was, and I was like, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get this. And finally I did reach out for some actual professional help. So talk to me about some of the benefits of using somebody with your qualifications.
Yeah, so actually 70 to 80% of moms struggle with breastfeeding. So it's very common, like you said. And I think what really helps moms is having someone that can identify a few small, very minute changes that you can make to make latching a little bit easier, make breastfeeding easier, pumping easier.
Yeah.
And so knowing that somebody really has that expertise to look at all the little changes you need to make is huge.
Yeah, and as a first-time mom, I would describe breastfeeding as the most challenging part, and we get different kids. Mine was not colicky or any of the other things, but the most challenging part of becoming a new mom. So let's bust some myths, some breastfeeding myths. First and foremost, you spent the whole 9 months trying to avoid caffeine to a certain extent, and obviously avoid alcohol. What are the rules after if you're going to continue breastfeeding?
Yeah, so with caffeine, I love my cup of coffee. I know you do
Every
too.
day.
And really with caffeine, what you want to do is stick to around 200 to 300 milligrams. And that comes from the CDC, which depending on the blend and the roast that you drink, it's usually 1 cup of coffee is around 50 to 100 milligrams.
Oh, so you can even have 2 cups.
Yeah, you can have 2 cups.
Which you need if you have a child.
Yes, absolutely. And I always tell moms, just try to pair it with some food because that's really important to balance your blood sugar when you're getting that caffeine intake as a breastfeeding mom.
Okay.
So that's a huge thing. And then as far as alcohol, a lot of moms are like, oh, I can't do it at all, or I need to dump the milk, pump and dump, right?
Yes.
I'm sure you have heard that a million times. And really the recommendation is actually 2 to 3 hours of metabolized time for 1 serving of alcohol. So of course that's going to depend based on what you choose to consume, but ideally you can actually minimize the exposure by feeding baby and then consuming your beverage right after feeding baby, so it has that time to metabolize.
Yeah, because typically we're feeding them every 2 to 3 hours. Now another thing I really struggled with was just production in general. I was either plugged into the wall and I couldn't move. Even when I got the mobile ones, it's just, I was not, eventually got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm not producing enough. I know skin to skin is important, but what are some other things we can do to help us produce more?
Yeah, so actually milk frequency of removal. So how often you're pumping or latching your baby to the breast directly is what can really drive supply, and trying not to go too outside of that 2 to 3 hour mark. And then I think something that a lot of moms know is important, but they don't really track it is, what are you eating and how much?
Oh my gosh, I
and
did
how
all the
often?
cookies and the water and the drinks and the this and the that. And it did make a difference. So like you said, you've got to do everything across the board. But would you say that skin to skin is the most important thing?
I think skin to skin is really impactful because it does release those oxytocin hormones where you're bonding with your baby. And even if you are stressed about breastfeeding, it can help you release some of that stress and just bond with your baby and know no matter what way I choose to feed my baby, what my journey ends up looking like, it's still about me being a mom and me being the only person that can be there for my baby. So I think that's great.
Well, I love that. You're very empowering. Another group that I found very empowering was La Leche League, which is nationwide, but there is a local one you can join on Zooms and things like that. Where can we find you online before we go?
Yeah, so you can definitely find me on Instagram or on my website. I'm Lutz Lactation, or on Instagram it's lutz.lactation. So definitely find me there. And then I'm actually making a few local appearances at WIC every so often and some of the other support groups here in town.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and empowering our women. definitely going to have her back for more information to help empower you. We'll be back with more. It's Coastal Living.